Hello everyone, Storm11 here. Today we'll be tracking a storm system that'll be developing along an Arctic front. They'll bring in a winter storm, even an ice storm across parts of the Carolinas and southeastern Virginia. We're also going to be watching an Alberta Clipper system that'll be moving from parts of the northern plains, upper Midwest, and eventually get down to parts of the Ohio Valley. That could bring in some light accumulations for some areas. And then we're going to be watching another system here they'll be rolling through parts of the Four Corner states. They'll be moving it to southern Texas, but really after at that point is a big question. Could it go a little bit north or could it go a little bit south? That may have a potential to bring in some a pretty good snow as well. So we'll be talking about that as well. Before we get started, if you guys do like weather related content, you can always subscribe to my channel. We'll be having more updates on some of this stuff as well. So definitely stay tuned for that as well. So we're going to get started with the watch warning map display. And pretty interesting out there, I gotta say. One of the more interesting areas is what's going on in southern Texas. That's a winter storm warning for parts of southern Texas. That's very interesting. Even down there, even a winter weather advisory is very interesting as well. Speaking of winter weather advisory, there's another little cluster of winter weather advisories across parts of southeastern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and to southern Alabama. That's pretty much associated with some light icing. It's not going to be a big deal, but it will create hazards on those overpasses as well. It can certainly put on a glaze of ice on the bridges as well, so that's the reason for the winter weather advisory down there. But what's going to be a little bit more significant is what's going to be going on, in the parts of the Carolinas in southeastern Virginia as well, where we do have an ice storm warning that includes places like Wilmington, North Carolina, and also Myrtle Beach, South Carolina as well, is within that ice storm warning as well. That's where we could possibly see ice accumulations a little bit over a quarter of an inch as well for some of those areas as well. So let's check out some of the model guidance. Now, compared to the last event, which happened last night across parts of the Ohio Valley and the parts of the Northeast, unfortunately, it was a bust for some areas, especially, at least from what I've been told, in the Mid-Atlantic. I believe they didn't see much of any snow in the Mid-Atlantic. However, we still got a decent amount of snow in the parts of Kentucky and West Virginia. Winter storm didn't necessarily happen, but it was a pretty good swath of snow either way. But one of the more important things is what model did the best job. And none of the models didn't really do a good job with it. Either that they were too widespread with the snow and or too high with those snowfall amounts. And the closest I found was the NAM. It wasn't too high. It was actually about spot on with the snowfall tools. But the only flaw that it had that it was a little bit further south. If the name were to be correct, I don't think I want to see much of any snow, but it came a little bit north. So in my backyard, I got 3.5 inches of snow out of it, which is a pretty decent snow out of it. But the reason why this could be important is what it kind of tells you about model performance, what could happen in the next event, which will be happening tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit more on that. So we'll get started with the NAM since it did the best job on the last event. So your Arctic front will be continuing to move off to the southeast. It will have some snow on the backside of it. Accumulations will be very minor if there's going to be any. And really by later tonight into Friday morning, we got some icing issues across parts of North Carolina. Could see some light ice accumulations out there. Still a little bit of snow going on across parts of southeastern Virginia. That's an area I'm watching here. Southeastern Virginia and northeastern North Carolina. That's an area I'm watching for to have potential to see some higher snowfall totals. Because as we continue through this run here, those areas will experience snowfall for a longer period of time than everybody else. In that case, some of your highest totals could be in that area. You'll notice here some of the increase of isobars offshore. That's going to be a developing low pressure system. And these purple colors out here is freezing rain, and there's definitely a decent amount out there. It goes up along parts of the east coast of the Carolinas. That includes Myrtle Beach and even Wilmington, North Carolina as well. Those are some of your bigger areas kind of involved in here with this ice as well. And me on the back side here, a little bit further inland, is a pretty good round of some snow as well. And eventually by Friday night and early Saturday morning, it should be out of here by that time period as well. And then temperatures going to get colder in those areas as well. So here's the snowfall accumulation forecast for the NAM, and you can see what I'm talking about here, where areas where you experience snow for a longer period of time is where you're going to see some of the higher totals. Then again, northeastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, that's an area I'm watching. The NAM suggests well over 7 inches of snow in some places down there, but for everybody else, it's really a general 1 to 3 inches. But even some of the surrounding areas could see at least 4 inches of snow out of it as well. Here's the herd model, and this model here was a little bit too fast with the last system. That's another thing to note, is that whenever a system is a little bit too fast, it could be a little bit further south, and there'd be lesser amounts. And last night, the herd model was a tad bit fast with it, so some of the amounts from this model here is going to be a little bit underdone. Plus, it does keep some of those higher totals a little bit further south, which is kind of interesting with that as well. How it kind of keeps it a little bit further south, and it doesn't quite get doesn't show much of the way for northeastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia. And here's the outcome: not much of anything. Oh wait a minute, I didn't go for the entire run, but either way, even going for the rest of the run here, still not a whole lot of snow out there. Not many areas getting over 4 inches of snow. So that is going to be a little bit concerning. Now, then again, like I said, it does move a little bit too fast with it. So some of these amounts I think are going to be a little bit higher than what this model is suggesting. But either way, it does show a large swath of anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of snow across parts of northeastern South Carolina into eastern North Carolina and eventually up to southeastern Virginia as well. You do notice there from this similar system here, it does bring a tad bit snow in far eastern Massachusetts as well, which is a little bit interesting as well. If it does trend a little bit further west, hey, far eastern Massachusetts, you may get some snow out of this as well, if it does trend a little bit further west. Here's a high-res NAM, and it's not really impressed with it either. What's probably a little bit more impressed about it is the ice situation. You can see here with those multiple rounds of some of that freezing rain going through, some of those showers kind of transitioning into freezing rain as we kind of go back and forth here. I mean, just quite a bit of freezing rain. It may not seem like a whole lot on this map here, but light freezing rain can accumulate easily compared to heavy freezing rain. That's something else to note as well. And what is snowfall amounts from the highest now? You can see here it's not very impressive with it, but it does have that similar bullseye area. Northeastern North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. Well over 4 inches in some places. It's a very small area. Here's a high-res Canadian model. This is the more aggressive model solution here. And I think it's too aggressive on this one here, in my opinion here. But it does show a big swath of snow across a good chunk of the Carolinas. Still has quite a bit of ice kind of going along the east coastline as well. Here's the snowfall totals out of it. And you can see here quite a bit of snow out there. And the hardest Canada is typically a little bit on the higher end when it comes to the energy. So that's kind of why it's always been a little bit on the higher end of the scale for a decent amount of these events because of the energy. And when you kind of think about it in a little bit more detail, especially when it comes to a little bit earlier in forecasting, if the hardest graded, because what typically happens in northwest trends, it doesn't happen every single event, but when a northwest trend typically happens, the amount of energy does increase, and the highest cadet is always on the higher end and when it's a little bit further out. And it usually doesn't change a whole lot. So that's another thing to note about this here sweat, which has been trending northwest just a tad bit. Hasn't been a whole lot today. But I think that'd be something interesting though. But I think in my opinion, I think the highest Canadian don't think it would be the best model to use for this event. I think in my opinion, I think the NAM has a better handle with this. But this is the National Weather Service forecast thoughts on here, and it's pretty similar to the NAM model. Bullseye in northeastern North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. Well, over 6 inches of snow, but it does have accumulating snow as far southwest as into parts of South Carolina, but it's not a whole lot. Anywhere from a coating to an inch at best down there as well. And with the ice situation here, we'll go through at least for the next 24 hours here. It does show most of the ice accumulations to be in the parts of eastern North Carolina, but some of the ice accumulations is going to be higher than what this shows um, as well. So then again, what the system's going to bring, it's going to bring an ice storm for parts of the east coast of the Carolinas. Even if you're not inside an ice storm warning, and if you're below the coastline, you're still going to experience some ice here. That could go down as far south as parts of far southern South Carolina, is where we could see some icing down there as well. Won't be much down there, but those overpasses is definitely something you will need to pay attention to as well in all these areas in here, wherever you get icing. Because what kind of accumulates first here versus other things out there is overpasses. Because they cool down much faster than just blacktops. So if you see an overpass, just please be careful on them, as it will likely be icy as well. Okay, so there's that storm out of the way. Let's talk about our next system. It's not going to be a big system or anything, but this is the highest Canadian. Here it is right here. This is Saturday evening up into parts of Dakotas, Minnesota. This will be a fast-moving system here. And it could bring in a widespread swath of some accumulating snow across parts of Minnesota, eventually into parts of Iowa, central Illinois. Hey, maybe getting into central Indiana. Those folks have been not seeing much snow this winter so far. If they're going to see a best chance for snow, it probably be this one. Unfortunately, it won't be much, but it's probably better than nothing. And you can see how it continues to move down to parts of Kentucky and eventually to the higher elevations of West Virginia. That could be our next system to watch right there as well towards the end of the run. Here's the NAM model. It's pretty similar, but it's a little bit further of a northern track here. And whenever it's a little bit stronger, it'll take a little bit of a northern track. And it'll have a little bit more snow with it, which really this far out, it's typically a little bit overdone when it comes to snowfall amounts, so I may take it as a grain of salt. But then again, some changes will likely be on the way with this system here as well. But either way, it probably brings widespread light accumulations. But some of the higher accumulations will probably be more focused in parts of the Midwest, in the northern plains as well, than the Ohio Valley. So there's that system all out of the way. Our next system to watch will be coming up early next week, which at this point in time here, here's our Clipper system moving through parts of the Ohio Valley for the GFS. Here's another system moving from parts of southern Canada and northern plains. But the main piece of energy I'm watching for is what's going on down here. You do see some rain and some snow in the higher elevations in parts of Arizona and New Mexico. That's the next system that I'm watching here. And it might be, and you'll think here, you see a piece of energy up here, and then you see this one here down there. This could be a big storm. Well, maybe. This one here might actually be too fast for this other piece of energy to catch up. However, there's still that potential for a decent amount of snow. Even if it misses this northern piece of energy, which it probably will, since it will be moving pretty darn fast, it's a track of this system down here. If it tracks a little bit further south, we won't see much of any snow out of it. But if it tracks a little bit north, like the GFS is wanting to suggest, we can see more snow out of this. Which you can see here, since it goes a little bit further north with it, it has a little bit that moisture has better interaction with that colder air further to north. You can see here it really becomes widespread when you get up to parts of the Ohio Valley as well. However, that's one model, one solution. Let's check out the Canadian model. Pretty similar over the next several days here, but you kind of get to that same situation. You'll notice here already, your piece of energy is pretty far to the south. And here's your northern piece of energy moving through parts of the Great Lakes. And with that southern track, it doesn't really interact with that cold air at all. So yeah, already has some uncertainties with the system here, and it's still at least a couple days away. Keep in mind that really the event could begin pretty much on Tuesday here. If we look into the GFS model with that northern track, really the main time frame on this one here may be late Monday night into Tuesday. So it's still several days away, so some things can still change here. It'll be interesting to see how the higher resolution models will handle this, especially the highest Canadian, where it's always a little bit stronger when it comes to the pieces of energy. So it'll certainly be something to watch here. If we check out the European model, it's actually similar to the Canadian model here. Takes it further south with it as well. And here's a little bit better view of it, at least for a better perspective. We have these set on to Monday evening. So this is what the GFS looks like. Let me actually do this at different colors here. Give you guys an idea. So GFS will be in red. There we go. Here's the Canadian model. We'll put this in green. You can already tell already. The Canadian model's a little bit further south of it. And then here's the European model, which unfortunately, since we're on a different site here, it won't pop up. But either way, if I were to highlight this, it would even be a little bit further south as well. So it really has to depend on where's this thing here going to go. If it goes a little bit, takes a little bit of a northern track, we can see a little bit more snow with it, has a better interaction with the colder air. But if it goes further to the south here, like going through the Gulf of Mexico, we won't see much of anything out of this. So definitely some uncertainty with the system here. It is something to watch for now, but we are still several days away from this event. So things will likely change on this as well. But it will certainly be interesting to watch. But anyways, guys, that's all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Guys, like this video, hit the like button if you do like my channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications in there, miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, with the comment section down below, or if you guys have questions. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.